please welcome Filippo Scotti, who plays Fabietto, and one of the greatest directors, Paolo Sorrentino. Oh my goodness, Paolo, what an honor to have you here.
Thank you. No, it's an honor for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, one of the greatest filmmakers. Yeah. I want to start with asking you about a pattern that I saw in your film of seeing and not seeing. For example, the scene where, Fabietto goes to the hospital, the doctor says, I don't want you to see. I don't want you to see. Later on, with the Baronessa, she asks Fabietto, do you see me? This push and pull between seeing and not seeing in your film that is so poignant. Can you talk about that motif?
I understood, but to be sure, I asked. Non vedere? Okay. Understood. And I don't know. It's maybe it's the secret of our work to be able to see and to avoid the things that we must not see. So in the movie, he said many times, "I am good to observe." So that's it. And then I don't know. Some choices are. The result of the instinct, not of thoughts. That's my poor answer to your question.
Yeah, and then also the fact that Fabietto, in the second half of the film, needs to find a form of freedom, and then he goes to the jail and meets the gangster, and they discuss different forms of freedom. Can you talk about that theme that is in your film, the importance of finding freedom?
Yeah, the paradox of that kind of loss is that you suddenly, very young, 17 years old, 18 years old, you conquer the freedom. And but at the same time, in my case, you don't know how to handle and how to use the freedom. So it's a sort of a paradox. Only years later, I understood that the freedom was the freedom that I had so young was the key in order to do what I had desired to do, the filmmaker. Mm-hmm. The truth is that if my parents was alive, it was impossible for me to say them, I want to be a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's how the life works in this case. Suddenly you are free.
Mm-hmm. Did it take a lot of courage for you to write this story?
More than courage, I would say that I was embarrassed. I was afraid to put me, even because I chose this work because I love to stay behind the scenes. I don't love to show myself. So I was very embarrassed in order to do that. But at the same time, it was important for me. At the beginning, it was important for me to write this movie for my kids. I wanted to let the script to my kids so they could understand why I was so weird. So I was sometime I was like a boy, like a child, and sometime I was full of rage. I didn't have a balance because of this of these things that happened to me when I was young. Mm-hmm. And yes, I was more embarrassed than brave.
But once you were filming and once you were creating it, did you find a form of release that you were able to distance yourself from the pain?
No, I thought because all movies I have done before, I spent 1 year, 2 years in order to do a movie, and because there is something that's interesting for me. And then when the movie is over, I am tired about that issue. I thought, okay, if I do a movie about myself, my pain, probably I will tired of my pain after the end of a movie. In this sense, it was helpful. Now I am a little bit tired to think about me and my my sorrow. So it was a good therapy without going to the therapist. Yes.
Filippo, you play a fictionalized version of the great Paolo here. Was it, you know, I would love to hear what you have to say about, was it lots of pressure for you as an actor to impersonate, you know, his story?
At the beginning, definitely yes, because it was in general a bit stressing to think about, you know, to be a main character in a movie, first of all. Then to think about to be a main character of Sorrentino's movie, and then to play basically the director's teenage years in his movie. So yeah, it was in this case very stressful. But then I just realized that after the first day of shooting, I realized that I should like take a distance, you know, between what I imagined that was his life, his teenage years, better, and what was written on the script, what was connected to Fabietto, and then when I changed this, you know, this perspective, I realized that was kind of easier and less heavy, and so wasn't so stressful anymore. Yeah.
Paolo, I introduced your film. I mentioned all of your past work, which we greatly admire, and they all have a very strong visual language. In this film, there is, in a good way, is sober. Can you tell us about the transition and why this film needed the style that you undertook?
Yeah, my life is not so interesting like characters that I did in The Great Beauty, where there was a style that followed the glamorous world that I was describing. So I thought, and then in this movie, the most important thing were the feelings of the main character and the feelings of his brother, of the people that around him. And in order to do that, I thought that the best idea was to be sober, to be simple, and to do a step back in everything, through the light, through the costumes, through the production designer, to do something of very simple, So and then I found out that at the beginning, the first day of shooting, I tried to do some things like in the previous movies, but I realized together with my cinematographer that it didn't work, that it was a sort of nota stonata, come si dice?
Off tune?
Off tune.
Okay. In your previous film, you worked with the great cinematographer Luca Bigazzi, and in this film is Daria D'Antonio. And one of the things that struck me is that in the previous film, your camera is always moving, is always searching, is anxious. And in this film, my interpretation is that you don't have to look for the truth so much.
It's exactly what I believe, that I move a lot the camera, and I moved the camera a lot in the previous movies because I was looking for a truth, and in this case I knew the truth, so I just was waiting that the actors gave me back the truth that I knew. This is the reason why the camera is still.
Mm-hmm. And because of that, there is gorgeous moments of poetry, like the picnic, the lunch, where all of a sudden there's poetry in them just interacting as humans. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's my family, and it looks like exaggerated, but they were exactly like that. And it was very funny to live in that kind of family. And yes, my thought was I would love to do a summer Sunday that can put together all the Sunday that I was used to live when I was young, and at the same time to describe the end of the summer. That scene is a very long scene because it belongs to all the summer, all the Sunday that I spent in my life, and at the same time there is a sort of a feeling of the end of the summer of the life.
Filippo, he mentioned your brother. It's such a poignant relationship. You both are opposites. Can you tell us about working with, in the relationship with your brother on screen?
Let's say that was at the beginning. It was I was a bit envious of him, not in a bad way. I mean, just like a brother. But I didn't realize it yet at that time. So we started the movie, and this, in my opinion, was important for our characters. We started the movie in Stromboli, on the island. So basically, we weren't really talking to each other. I was kind of hiding, maybe because I was thinking about my character, and then we basically spoke for real with the words of that scene on the bridge in Stromboli, and it was the first time that we had really a contact, And for me, it was very interesting because in that moment, I felt the scene so much, as I think Marlon did, that I kind of realized that I had in front of me a brother. And this thing confused me a bit, but at the same time, mi ha permesso allowed me to build this connection with him. That was super strong then. And then we did the movie together, and we were just brothers. Like this, like a magic trick. I don't know how to say. Yeah, I think was like that.
Paolo, your family, the family in the film uses humor as a form of connection. It's I don't know how to describe it. It's so beautiful the way that they use humor. Even in the darkest moments, they transcend those moments by the usage of humor and comedy. Can you talk about that aspect?
Yeah, I come from a city where we give a lot of importance to the life, and in order to give importance to life, we use two topics. One is the humor, and one is the death. We speak all the time about death because we appreciate a lot the life. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's a characteristic of my family. We don't take seriously the people. We don't, not only my family, many families in Naples, we don't take seriously anything because the life is short and it's better to have a joy. And this is also the reason why, for an opposite way, we speak a lot about the death, la morte. Death.
Yeah, death.
Yeah. My mother started the day calling my aunt and speaking about who is sick, who is dying, who is dead. For the first 3 hours of the day, it was always like that.
Yeah, I told you my mother is Italian, and she starts the day by asking if you were regular, if you.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
then after that, everything is fine.
Maria, and the first thing that my parents read on the newspaper was the
The obituary.
the obituaries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The mother is Maria is such an amazing character. She teeters between pranks and then tragedy. Was that for the actress? Was that difficult to modulate the changes from happiness to tragedy?
I don't know. I don't know how the actors and actresses work. So I just saw her, and she was very good. She has the same characteristics of my mother, so maybe it was easy for her to do that. And she loves to make pranks, the actress, and my mother as well. It was a different world, without phones, without computers, and the pranks were very important. Were something. Of course, I didn't have the time to tell other pranks that she did, but it was something very that occupava la sua vita, come si dice? That occupied her life for a long time to arrange pranks to the people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Filippo, in all of Paolo's characters, the main character is always filled of melancholia, melancholy, and loneliness. Was that hard for you to inhabit a character that has so much loneliness in him?
I don't think so. No, it wasn't really hard. I mean, this probably last year for me was easier, and I was closer to that type of that feeling. So, and something that helped me a lot to catch this emotion, this feeling, was to basically spend the entire month of August, so the month of before the beginning of the shooting, alone at home while my parents, my sister were on vacation, and this was interesting because I think, or this is the impact that has the summer on me, that the summer is a bit melancholic, So I'm alone at home, I'm sad, reading books, watching films, and going to sleep. And this was kind of helpful for me to get closer to that type of vibe. Yeah.
Paolo, we have Maradona, which in the film lurks like a divine figure, and then we have the little monk, and we have San Gennaro. Can you talk about those divine figures that hover over your film?
Yeah, we love. We are a sort of in my city. We love a sort of a polytheistic religion that has many profane figures that become divine. And Maradona was from the first moment a divine figure, because he was not only a great football player, but he was a guy with. He was a guy small. How can I say? It was incredible that guy was so important for the sport, for the world, and so we decided that he was a divine figure, and for me above all, because I believe that he saved my life. So yes, that's it. That's it.
And then we have other figures that are equally as divine, like Fellini. We have Zeffirelli, and we have Sergio Leone, and Once Upon a Time in America, hovering over the story as well. And you tell us about the importance of having those characters in the movie.
Yeah, the movie is full of figure or things that brought me a wonder. I am obsessed by the wonder in the life, and Fellini, the movies, the football, Maradona, the little monk is something that mi meraviglia, wonders me.
Makes me generate wonder in me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so the movie is full of the things that when I was young and I was discovering the life, can I say? They were important for me, and I put in the movie. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Filippo, the scene with the Baronessa is such a tender, powerful scene. What was it like for you to shoot that sequence with the Baronessa?
I mean, it was a long day of shooting, I have to say. No, but not because it was. I mean, it's particular scene, but I was very happy to do it. I mean, when I read it the first time, I felt something inside. Probably I cried, if I remember good, and because it's something that's it's so important, in the life of a person, especially when maybe you're not alone around you, but you feel alone, and you have someone that, in a way, is showing you a possibility to change chapter, to see something different. And I think this is beautiful because I mean it's very lucky. I mean someone can be very come toccato da qualcosa di divino, appunto.
It's as if you were touched by something which is divine-like, so to speak.
So for me was a beautiful day, and then everything was very organized, and everything was so relaxed and calm, and was a poetic scene, a sweet scene, and I never thought about this scene as a sex scene. I think it's nothing with there is nothing with non c'è niente anyway with sex, yeah, nothing.
No, correct. No, she liberates you and sends you on your way. It's a very beautiful scene. Paolo, the choices you make, I knew all along that we were in the 1980s, but visually it feels very timeless, that costumes and music and choices don't pin it down to 1980s. Can you talk about that choice?
Yeah, no, it was my idea because as an audience, when I saw the period movie where every detail is so precise, I find that it's something of distracting. No, so I preferred to do a movie where the 80s were not so close to the 80s, but it was timeless, like you said. Otherwise starts a game between people where you say, do you remember that? Do you remember the phone that we had? And we are distracted by the feelings of the characters. So I preferred to not use the strong colors of the 80s in my city. I remember that we dressed with the pink shirt, and everything was very colored, but I thought that it was distracting from the real essence of the movie.
And speaking of color, because you brought it up, and Daria, at the beginning of the film, we see very powerful colors. Halfway through the movie, it's slightly toned down, and then at the end of the movie, we see brighter colors again. And can you tell us about that journey?
Yeah. No, the first scene is a sort of dream or something that can be a dream, and so it has a completely different tone and colors. And then the movie, after that, a couple of scenes becomes realistic, and just at the end, again, there is a sort of luminosità, come si dice, brightness, because just in the end he is able to look at the future instead of thinking at the past, like during all the movie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Filippo, Tony Servillo has been in all of Paolo's films. What was it like? And he plays your father in the film. Tell us about working with the great Tony Servillo.
I was very honored. For me, it was like I knew basically everyone on set before, the beginning of the shooting. I knew all the actors and actresses. So for me, it was like I was there, and especially in the lunch scene, with all the family. I was very happy. I was like looking around and very curious to understand how they're working, and especially Tony, how Tony was working. And I mean, with him was I could not expect that, but was very smooth, you know, was very natural, and I suddenly felt Tony like a dad too. I mean, everything was as with Teresa. She was my mom. I mean, I think that is because of Paolo that create this family. I mean, I felt it's like I did nothing, you know, to build something that was already there, you know, and it was strange for me. It was something very magic, and with Tony, it was very funny, everything, and nice, especially the motorcycle scene. That was the Vespa scene was a nice day.
And Paolo, how the first half of the film is all sensual and very warm, and then the second half of the film becomes a meditation. But in the middle, of course, is the death of the parents. How difficult was it for you to shoot that particular scene of the parents?
No, it was pretty difficult, and but the good thing of the cinema is that you are always distracted by the daily problems. So there is always somebody of the crew that asks you things. So I was distracted. It was painful to write the movie because I was alone at home, and it was more painful than shooting. The shooting, I had also a wonderful crew and wonderful actors that understood my feelings, and so they were very warm and close to me, very discreet, and yes, that's it.
Mm-hmm. In your previous films, music is at the foreground, in the forefront, and in this film, music takes a back seat until the very last scene when we listen to Pino's song Napoli È. Can you talk about that choice of putting music in the foreground?
Yeah, no, it's always the same thing, that I didn't want to do a period movie where you recognize things that were not important in order to have feelings. So the music was something that could be distracting. And then I had this simple idea that he hears music, but because of his pain, he's not able to listen the music, and only at the end he is ready to listen the music. That's something that belongs to the future, to the joy, to a new idea of what's coming on.
Mm-hmm. And in the film, a pivotal figure is Antonio Capuano, the director, the filmmaker. You know, you were mentored by Antonio. No, go ahead. You were going to say something.
No. I was.
And then, tell us about what was it like for you to write, including Antonio, and shooting the scenes with Antonio, which are very pivotal scenes for the film.
Yeah, it was a part of my life very important. When I started to try to make movies, I met him, and he immediately called me to write a movie with him. He read something that I wrote many years ago, and he said, "Okay, let's work together." And we spent years to walk back and forth on in the street where there is the sea in my city. We thought to do movies walking, so I decided, and he taught me many things. He taught me the importance of the conflict, how important is to not be too self-confident about this work because you have a pain. He told me that the pain is not enough. You have to find a voice in order to describe your pain and things that you have to say. And so for me, the things that he told me were very important. He taught me.
Yeah, well, it's one of the things that not one of the things, the one thing that I'm crazy about your film, that you basically are telling the audience that cinema liberates us, that cinema gives us a second chance.
Yes, cinema, because there is the cut, cinema allows to build a perfect life that's different from the real life that's never perfect. So cinema is a great opportunity for me to recreate a parallel life exactly like I would love to live.
Wow. Thank goodness this is being recorded so I can get that quote down the road. Filippo, shooting that scene with Antonio, tell us about working with you and the character that plays Antonio.
We shot that scene in 2 days, and the first day was not a very beautiful day, like the weather wasn't very nice, I remember, and it was a bit strange for me. We were shooting in this cave, and we shot that first part, and it was so long. I remember, like many hours of shooting in that cave, and I was a bit scared because I knew that something was almost arriving, that we would go out of that cave, and I was scared about that, about that thing that would happen there. And then I remember that we finished the day, and we had the appointment the day after in the early morning to shot the the scene out of the cave, and I remember that we spoke. Paolo told me many things before this day, and when we arrived there, we were also Ciro, that is playing Antonio Capuana, and is an older actor, so he has a lot of experience. I could feel from him attention, and then Paolo told us something that probably I will never forget. Because it's not something just connected to that scene or to the movie, something connected with life. And he told us before shooting that scene, the cameras were there, ready to go, and the sun was rising, so we had not a lot of time. And he was like, "Okay, come here," and it was like, "Yesterday you showed me to be beautiful and amazing actors, but now I want to see your person, your soul, your truth." So basically it was strange because you're working on something and you have some lines, and suddenly the director is telling you I want your truth through these words, and this was very touching for me and for Ciro too. And I understood how important are the words, especially some words that the director is spending for you in a specific moment, and that was very helpful. And then we did the scene, and it was painful but beautiful at the same time, because after every time you are having something here, and then you are deciding to tell something, to say it after. Sometimes it's always come dire, liberating. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's yeah.
Paolo, you start the film with a quote from Maradona, and he says, "I did what I could. I don't think I did it so badly." How, after building your film, creating your film, this whole experience, how do you feel about that quote?
He was kidding. I am serious about that quote. He was kidding when he said it was not so bad. For me, it was real. It was not so bad.
Yeah, but in respect to what you've accomplished with this film, how do you feel the sentiment of that quote?
how do I feel about the sentiment of the quote? No, it was a quote of Maradona that I loved because it was an ironic quote, because he told, I am not so bad. Instead, he was the best player of all times. And but it's not my quote, it's his quote. Yeah.
Well, thank you both for being
Thank
here.
you very much.
You guys are
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.